Hey there, and welcome back to the stream. We are covering some NFL free agency, some trades that have gone on. There's a lot to kind of go over collectively. When you look at everything that's happened so far, it's pretty exciting. And we're going to first start off by covering this. Jalen Ramsey going to the Miami Dolphins for a third round pick and Hunter Long. Now, when you consider everything that's happened so far, this is not entirely shocking. When you look at Jalen Ramsey going there, to me, it makes a lot of sense for the Miami Dolphins. They're in a competitive division. They're trying to really go for it, right? I mean, they felt like they were pretty close last year. They didn't have enough to essentially beat the Buffalo Bills, but at the end of the day, Buffalo's a tough team. They're a tough team to beat and take down in the division, and they're going to be probably getting better this offseason. So Miami felt that they had to take the next step. They had to make that next leap, that next jump. So by acquiring Jalen Ramsey, to me, it makes a lot of sense. Now, when you look at the actual implications for the LA Rams, this is a team that is going to have to retool and reconfigure what they're trying to do. They had spent so much time looking at it from the aspect of we can buy this team. We can buy exactly what we want. We're going to exhaust a ton of draft capital. And that's what they did. And that bit them big time this year. It bit them huge. And I think when you look at this roster, they gotta kind of tear it down, to be completely transparent. Now, you don't have that time with Sean McVay. Sean McVay is a guy that you want to keep around long term. I don't know what his timeline is. So to me, that trade makes a lot of sense for the Miami Dolphins. Now, for the Rams, I didn't like the return. I did not like the return that I had seen from them. It was kind of tough to watch. The fact that they had to give up so much for Jalen Ramsey. They got some really nice years out of him. Don't get me wrong, they did. Right? They went all in. It made sense, but at this point, I'm not really sure how I feel about where Jalen Ramsey's at in his career now. And, that point where they end up getting a third round pick, which is, I think, 77th overall, that makes sense. But Hunter Long is a player that I don't get it. He's had one catch in 2 seasons with the Dolphins, hasn't had a ton of playing time, but in the games he has played in, has not been an impact guy. So, nevertheless, we're going to be kind of going over this. Now, I think we're going to take a look here. We got Chargers Kid, NFL free agency period. Let's take a look on the first official day. Let's see what the first, I think it's Wednesday. Yeah, so it's going to be the 15th at 4 p.m. Eastern. Now, the 13th through the 15th is the legal negotiation period. But yeah, so there's going to be a lot of stuff going on, a lot to cover. And I think when you consider this free agent period, there's going to be a lot of moving pieces, in my opinion. I kind of look at this as a monumental year for the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are in a position where they can make a splash in free agency. They have, $94 million of cap space to do it with. They made a big trade to acquire, obviously, DJ Moore and a ton of draft capital. They're in the right spot. They're absolutely where you need to be heading into free agency. Ryan Poles has done a nice job. I have to say he's done a really, really good job at what he's done so far. So right now, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the top NFL free agents. I think when you look at the free agent class, it's pretty good. It is. It is 100%. I'm going to see probably the best one to do is this one. So pull that up quick. All right. So that's 2022. Yeah. So can players still sign like OBJ? OBJ is available. Yes, he is. He can sign right now. Same thing with Derek Carr. Since the fact that they had released him, that's why Derek Carr was able to sign with the Saints. That was kind of a shocking move, in my opinion. It was the fact that the Saints decided to commit a lot of financial, capital towards him. To me, is crazy. It is, because the Saints are not close to really, really contending. I'm not a fan of Dennis Allen though either. So I look at Dennis Allen as a net negative for that franchise, and I think it's going to take a couple of years for them to really realize that. Um, yeah, there's a lot to go on yet in free agency. Uh, Steven here says, I'm so mad y'all got Calvin Ridley from us as a Falcons fan. Promise he'll be a top 3 in receiving this upcoming season. Now, yeah, I mean, when you look at Calvin Ridley going to the Jags, that was a steal of a trade. Now, the nice thing is, if you're a Falcons fan, you better hope that, because there's tiers to this contract. There's a lot of tiers that go on to it. The fact that it can go from, all the way up to potentially a second round draft pick, depending on how it plays out. If he meets certain, statistical parameters, if he meets the, the overall like re-signing, it's even contingent if he does re-sign with the team on a long-term contract. So that's how you can continue to extend what that trade is for the Falcons. I wouldn't be too mad if I was a Falcons fan, because you can still get some pretty good capital for him. Calvin Ridley should have a huge year for the Jacksonville Jaguars, in my opinion. I think it's coming. I really do. I think you could see probably a 12 or 1,300-yard season out of him. And with the receiving core that they have, there's a lot to love about it. There's a lot to love about Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley. It's a much better combination than, say, a Marvin Jones and Zay Jones and Christian Kirk. Now you go ahead and add, should be a perennial Pro Bowler for the next couple of seasons, playing alongside of Trevor Lawrence. He's going to see a lion's share of the targets. To me, that's how it's going to progress. Now, OBJ at the Suns game, yeah, there's a lot going on with the OBJ thing. There was, I think it was 9 teams who were at his workout. I'm trying to recall all of the teams, but I know one team that was kind of interesting to me was the Minnesota Vikings. There's been a lot of rumors about him potentially going there. We've had rumors him going to Dallas. This is a saga that's going to continue. Can OBJ go back to the Giants? Yes, absolutely. I think that was another one of the teams that was at the workout. Yeah, I mean, he looked good in some of those routes, the routes you had seen, but overall, I think OBJ, I think he ends up back with the Giants. I really do. I think he enjoyed his time there. Had a lot of success, obviously, early on. The spotlight was on him. Gets shipped to Cleveland, and that kind of changes the entire dynamic of everything for his trajectory of his career. Got a couple of other comments, piling in here. We got Kupp to the Giants. Let's make it happen. Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Giants, they're going to make some splashes again. I mean, when you consider that Daniel Jones is going to be making a lot of money here on out, it's going to put a little more stress on the cap. That's just the fact of the matter. That's what's going to happen. However, they need to go ahead and make some additional moves. More specifically at the receiving position, in my opinion, they have to get better on the perimeter. The Giants are in a position where they can do that. They can make some trades, make it all go down. So overall, I'm kind of curious to see. Now, what will happen, with Cooper Kupp? Is there a chance that he gets traded? That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know at this point, because they have been moving off of high-priced veterans for quite some time now. And we're going to look at the teams with the most salary cap right now. I think this is going to be kind of interesting to go through it. Salary cap. And we'll go 1 through 10. We'll go absolutely 1 through 10. Take a look at the teams that got the most money right now. We'll go to Spotrac for this. So now the Bears currently, right now, as it stands, have about $75 million for allocation. The Falcons have $63 million. The Raiders have 47, Texans 41, Cards 36, Bengals 35, Broncos 33. A lot of these teams are in a good position here to make some splashes in free agency. You go all the way down. Tennessee's got 27 million. So a lot about this is pretty exciting. And we got some more comments coming in here. Lamar gets signed. Yeah. So interesting thing on Lamar Jackson, the fact that now he's able to negotiate with other teams. The Ravens did this to basically show Lamar that he's not worth the money that they're asking, or his team is asking of the Baltimore Ravens to sign him to. That's the big thing that you have to consider here. That's the only reason to do that, to let him for him to be able to negotiate with other teams. There's only one reason. It's for him to see his open market value and then he will sign a little closer probably to that Ravens number. I just don't think that the Ravens want to go into next season without Lamar Jackson. Obviously, that's not their intent, but it's a lot of money he's commanding right now, a huge number. Daniel Jones does not help this market. Geno Smith did not help the quarterback market by their offseason contracts that they had signed. The fact that Geno Smith is so front loaded is going to throw everything out of whack. Now I look at it as overall, Lamar Jackson's going to get some big offers. Now let's kind of roll through the teams that very well could offer him. I could see Vegas making a big splash here, to be honest. A fun move, a sexy move. That's exactly what the Raiders would like to do. Something flashy like that, where they currently sit in the draft. I don't know if they want to go ahead and draft a quarterback. I'm not sure if they have fallen in love with anyone. Just knowing the fact that Carolina had jumped them. Now you have the Texans as well. So once again, those are two quarterbacks going 1 and 2. How do you feel about the rest of the class? That's the big question that you have to ask yourself. If you're a Vegas fan, are they going to go ahead and take a guy, like Will Levis? I'm not sure. That's a great question. I have no idea if they feel comfortable with the quarterbacks that remain. But now, the teams that'll likely talk to Lamar Jackson at the very least, Atlanta's got to be in there. There's all of this, oh, no way Atlanta's going to touch Lamar Jackson. I think they're going to be right in that conversation. I think the Raiders will be in on him. I think the Texans are going to stand pat here. I look at the rest of the roster or the rest of the teams here. I mean, how crazy would it be if New England all of a sudden jumped in on the sweepstakes? What if the New England Patriots jumped in and looked at it and said, okay, why don't we just bid for the services of Lamar? They have a pretty sizable amount of money working into the offseason, 59 players on roster currently. You look at a salary cap number of about $32 million for them. They could easily free this up. Now, you trade Mac Jones. That's the number one thing that you do. You're going to have to take a huge hit on value if you trade Mac Jones, but I think that when you consider where they're at here, yeah, they can free up some money. There's a couple of different guys that they're going to have to, like Hunter Henry would have to be a cap casualty. Now Devin McCourty retired, so that's some freed up money there. Overall, gotta like what you have moving into the offseason. So now we have another question here. What are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers to the Jets? Now, it really kind of depends on compensation. We aren't sure exactly what that's going to look like. I think when you consider the New York Jets, this is a team that was super close in terms of being competitive, a team that very well could win the division next year. I firmly believe that. If Aaron Rodgers is a part of this team, I think they very well could take the division. Now, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. They need to get Breece Hall back and healthy. They have, Garrett Wilson, who's an absolute stud at receiver. This is a very good football team, right? Their defense was awesome last year. A lot of that due to the phenomenal play of their cornerbacks. That's just a sheer fact. Now, when you look at the Jets, can they win the division? To me, the answer is yes. I firmly believe that they have the infrastructure, they have the coaching. This team can make it. Now, what is that price point? What is the price point of Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets? Very well could take a first round pick, second round pick, another second. Now, how much is that worth it? How much is it worth renting Aaron Rodgers essentially for a year or two to mortgage multiple first and second round draft selections? That's the question that has to be on everybody's mind. Owner Woody Johnson said, whatever it needs to take to go and get Aaron Rodgers, let's make it happen. I think the deal's just about done. They're probably working out some of the logistics on it. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Jet, and I think it's going to be very soon. I think it's going to be today, tomorrow, or the following day. Within the next 3 days, I believe Aaron Rodgers will be a New York Jet. So I can see that happening. I think it could be an interesting case here. I got Sean J here. Can you see the line signing Tremaine Edmonds? Tremaine Edmonds is one of the more exciting players in free agency. He's super young. I think he's only like 24 still at this point. He came out in the draft very young. Tremaine Edmonds is a big-time impact linebacker, Sideline to sideline, he can cover, shoots the gaps well. Overall, this is a player that is going to move the needle defensively for a team. I think the Lions should get in on Tremaine Edmunds. Absolutely. They have to shore up that front seven. With that, let's take a look at what the Detroit Lions have for money. They have $21 million in salary cap space. And once again, they're another team that can create some more. Let's see some of the roster numbers that they can go ahead and take a look here. Couple of different guys that they would have to move on from. Might be a little bit tougher for them. I think that Charles Harris might have to be a cap casualty if you're really trying to move the needle there. But Taylor Decker has a massive cap hit this year. $19 million, $17 million in dead cap. That's not movable at this point. Frank Ragnow is making a lot of money. Romeo Okwara is making a ton of money. $14.5 million cap hit this season. A lot of big dollars spent on those guys. Vaitai as well, $12 million cap hit. So overall, Detroit, I think that should be one of their sole moves, in terms of what their actual money is currently sitting at. You consider it being $21 million for the Lions. That's a sizable amount of change to be able to do something. Tremaine Edmunds is going to have a big market, in my opinion. Not a lot of times you find a linebacker this talented, this young, and that much tread left on the tires at that spot. So at that point, I'm kind of interested to see if Edmunds ends up being a Detroit Lion, which Detroit is going to be scary going into next year. Minnesota had a ton of regression this season. The Packers might move on from Aaron Rodgers, therefore completely changing the outlook for the Packers this season. I don't know. I'm not real sure what that looks like in the NFC North next year. I think the Lions probably win the division. Minnesota's defense is going to be awful with Eric Kendricks getting cut. Harrison Smith likely to be cut at some point here. So that's a big pivot point for them. Now, Chargers Kid also brings up, what if Miami gets Lamar Jackson? If Miami gets Lamar Jackson, that's going to be wild. That would be wild. Now, considering where they're going to be sitting at salary cap wise, a lot's going to have to change. They have $29 million in salary cap space currently. I think that is pre-Jalen Ramsey's contract being on here. I mean, they're paying Byron Jones a lot of money, like against the cap this year. Jalen Ramsey is included in that, actually. So they did update it just a little while ago. If Miami gets Lamar Jackson, that's going to be tough. That's going to be really tough to view how this team's going to be. I think that they're going to be so dynamic on offense. Think about all the speed that they have in the wide receiver room, what they would have at the quarterback position, at the running back position. I think, in the offseason here, they very well could look to add another athletic tight end to stretch the field vertically. The Miami Dolphins could be scary, and they have the assets to do so. So another one, Miami for Lamar Jackson. I think it could happen. Absolutely think that one could happen. Now, we have Braden here. I don't blame you. As a Packers fan, I just want the whole thing to end. This has been ongoing now for several years with Aaron Rodgers. You extend it back to last offseason where it took all the publicity all offseason long. What's Rodgers going to do? What's he going to do? And we finally got a little bit of a resolution with the extension. And then now heading into this offseason, once again, more drama all offseason long. It's hard to look at the Packers and focus on anything but Aaron Rodgers, but it's all the direction and your attention needs to go to that because that's the biggest moving piece of the offseason. That will set up the entire free agent period. It'll set up the draft as well. So Aaron Rodgers is going to command a lot of attention still until this deal gets done. For the New York Jets, this could be big. It very well could be big. Aaron Rodgers is going to move the needle. For the fact that they were running out Joe Flacco and Mike White and Zach Wilson all year long, they were super competitive throughout. Their defense kept them in a ton of games, generated turnovers. And I think when you look at the receiver room, this is another up-and-coming unit in the NFL. Stephon Diggs rumors. Stephon Diggs, I think that he could be traded. Once again, we find ourselves in a position with Stephon Diggs where we don't know what's going to happen with him. we're not exactly sure. Because with Stephon Diggs, there's always seemingly an issue heading into an offseason. He might be somebody that's kind of an overthinker, over analytical in what he's looking at and how he feels. And he had kind of talked actually on a podcast recently about his experience in Minnesota. And he said that was the darkest times of his life. And essentially, he went on to talking about how him not being the man and not being, essentially fulfilling up to his potential of what he thought he could be was the main deterrent for him in Minnesota. He was jealous of Adam Thielen because Adam Thielen was the guy. And he even admitted that in, with everything that was being said. The sad thing about it is that was, for 2 years could be considered like a top 2, top 3 wide receiver duo in the entire NFL. They were so dynamic together, and he decided that he just didn't want to be a part of it anymore. So I think it's kind of upsetting at that point that that's what went down. Stephon Diggs could have been an all-time great Viking and then opted to go off of that. Next one here, we got, do you think Derrick Henry gets traded? I think Derrick Henry is actually on the block. Now, people are going to say that's a ridiculous statement, but I don't think so. With the Tennessee Titans, they have to rebuild. Their defense is good. They have a good defense. Offensively, a lot of question marks. With Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, this unit very well could look a lot different than it did just a year ago. I think Derrick Henry should be traded. Now, I say this in the fact that Tennessee has to hit the reset button. They had their stretch with Derrick Henry. And when you get to a certain point in a running back's career, you have to make sure that you can flip that into another asset. Because there are too many times where teams will ride it out all the way until the point where their running backs have depreciated value so heavily that the returns are very, very minimal if they get any returns, period. So once again, that's a big question mark heading into the offseason here. And we're going to get to the next one. Something tells me that Washington will make a big splash for Orlando Brown. Orlando Brown, once again, another headliner of the offseason. Washington could make some moves. They very well could. Take a look once again. The Commanders currently sit with $16 million in salary cap space. They are right there. Now, once again, this is a team that very well could do a couple of different things. They definitely invest in their offensive line and defensive line, more specifically the defensive line and the draft capital they've allocated to it. But something that they might have to do, they might have to part ways with Charles Leno. I think that's probably the most important move they can make at this point is moving on from Charles Leno. And the reason I say that is you look at his cap hit currently, $12.5 million. $12.5 million goes a long way in free agency. With $4.5 million of dead cap there, you're looking $8 million of freed up cap space minus, you subtract Charles Leno from that. To me, that makes all the sense in the world. So, another comment here that we got, Braden, where do you think DeAndre Hopkins will go? So once again, these are some teams that we can consider him going to. Kind of a curious case on, it's crazy. It's really, really crazy because there's going to be some teams that are going to throw in some bids that we probably weren't expecting. I think the Denver Broncos are going to be a dark horse player for DeAndre Hopkins. And the reason I say that is you look at that $33 million cap space available, and DeAndre Hopkins is going to eat up a good chunk of your salary cap. You think Sean Payton joins this team, it's going to be a different look Broncos team next year. They have to progress. They have to get better on offense. And to me, with DeAndre Hopkins, that very well could be the case. And I think that would be an awesome move for the Broncos. Maybe Tennessee jumps in on it. They need some help in that receiver room. Treylon Burks, Kene Westbrook is another one. I don't know. I have some questions on Tennessee, but I think they're another landing spot here. Another comment here, can't get Lamar because they don't have their own first-round pick. That's also a good point. That is a good point on that one. We got another one here. We got And Darren Payne. Okay, so Payne stays 4 years, $90 million, staying with Washington. That is some great intel there because I have not seen that one yet. So pretty interesting. And when you look at what Washington's been able to do defensively, they have one of the better defensive lines that we've seen for the entire generation. Across the board, the edge rushers, the interior guys, it doesn't matter. Both of them, both spots are absolutely rock solid. They got to figure out that quarterback position, and that's a lot easier said than done, in my opinion. And let's take a look here. Man, wow. So it was a 4 year, $90 million for Daron Payne. Incredible. That is incredible. And this once again, like Adam Schefter mentioned, that wow, oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, this resets the market for defensive tackles. 4 years, $90 million for an interior defensive lineman. He's a good player. He's a really good player. Now that moves the needle again. Unbelievable. Crazy. So another one. We got Lions against Lamar. I think they're probably going to stick with Goff. I don't think they're going to make any drastic changes, in my opinion. Yeah, we got some other things here too. We got the NFL draft almost starting. With the NFL draft, it's right around the corner. We're doing a lot of prospect scouting. There's some crazy players in this class. Some guys that are unsung that I can for you guys to hear a little bit more about. There's so much here. Let's take a look at the next combat. Eagles will win the title next year. No, I think this is an interesting proposal around here for us because I think the Philadelphia Eagles are right there. They're so close. And I talked about last offseason. You talked about the channel. The Eagles close, and then they have a lot of assets last offseason, specifically drafted capital. So a lot to love here. This is good. I'm pretty excited about it. The Philadelphia Eagles are in contention again. I know they've got a couple of changes happening in the offseason. No Gardner, Johnson. There's some of you missing pieces from last year's team. They're going to address it in draft. Well. Now let's take a look here and hey, things are going well here, especially with NFL free agency just around the corner. This is great. So we got some static here coming. Let's go ahead and try to fix that. Now you guys can tell me if the mic is any better. I need my comment section to save me here. Maybe the mic is still staticky. I don't know. I don't know why that happens during my lives. It just tends to do that. So I don't know. Comment section, you'll have to save me on this one. Maybe it's still going. Maybe it's not. We'll have to see. Okay. Good, Mike. Now, I was wondering, all of a sudden we had a quick loss of about half the viewers here. So perfect. We are good to go. Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate this, Robert. Absolutely, man. Future is bright in Duval County. This team is ready to roll. When you look at the Jags, I'm pretty excited, right? But the problem is, once again, if we take a look at the cap space situation for Jacksonville, they are negative $17 million over the cap here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on that and see exactly the breakdown of what it's like. Cam Robinson, $22 million cap hit this year. Brandon Scherff, $20 million cap hit. Foley Fatukasi, nearly $13 million. Unbelievable what they're having to go up against here. Josh Allen's the guy they need to re-sign long term. Rayshawn Jenkins at $10 million. Oluokun, man, this team has definitely got some issues moving forward, salary cap wise. They re-signed Roy Robertson Harris. Was not a fan of that at all. I was not a fan of re-signing him at that point. I have some real concerns about them. But yeah,
Let me know in the comments section below what team that you guys are repping, and let's talk about them. Let's talk about some of the teams that you guys are looking at. Yeah, Braden, absolutely. They spent so much money last offseason, and especially the offseason prior with Urban Meyer. A big concern. It was a big concern of mine when you had Urban Meyer jumping into the fold. Trent Baalke did an awful job in terms of what some of the players he was bringing in, because we know Urban Meyer didn't know any of the players. Obviously, didn't even know who Aaron Donald was. So that's pretty embarrassing. That was a complete disaster of a first season for a head coach. Unreal, absolutely unreal. But yeah, once again, let me know in the comment section below who you guys are rooting for. Let's talk about some of those teams. I know obviously Robert's a Jags fan, so shout out to you, Robert. Let's go Duval County. But I do want to talk about some of the other teams that you guys are a fan of, and let's kind of get it from there. But yeah, I mean overall, I'm kind of excited to talk about Chicago. If any of you guys are Chicago fans, we have $75 million to talk about. The fact that they got 54 players signed, average age of about 26, so kind of around league average in terms of age. They are right there. Chicago is the curious case of what can they do around Justin Fields? Justin Fields is going to be a player that is I don't want to say out of excuses, but there's less excuses for him now more than ever for the sheer fact that he has weapons all across the board. He's got DJ Moore, he's got Chase Claypool, he's got a really good running game. All of those things collectively are the formula for success. Offensive lines improved for them. That was an issue for years and years about the Bears offensive line. Much improved, still some issues, but better than it's been over the last couple of seasons. Talk to Jay here. 49ers. Yeah, big 49er guy here. So let's talk about the 49ers. Now, I think that they're in a position where let's take a look. They got $7 million worth of salary cap space moving into the offseason. Now, with that being said, some of the big names: Trent Williams, $27 million cap hit; Eric Armstead, 23; Fred Warner, Javarius Ward, Nick Bosa. Now, at the quarterback position, that's probably the thing that we have to talk about the most. The quarterback position for San Fran. Are they going to opt to continue the pathway of Trey Lance? Are they going to roll with Brock Purdy next year? In my opinion, I think they end up going with Trey Lance again. I've heard some rumors about him potentially being traded to the Minnesota Vikings. That is a very, very, very out there prediction. However, I would be kind of intrigued to see a trade like that go down. Maybe does Kirk Cousins end up going to the 49ers? What would a trade like that, what would that look like for the 49ers and Vikings? Now, I think that if there's a team where Kirk Cousins is going to have monumental success in the postseason, it's going to be San Francisco. A really good offensive line, an awesome running game, and some game changing receivers is enough to go ahead and make him a guy that's, probably will be held in a higher regard finally if he ends up going there. Nevertheless, I think that the 49ers could make a trade for Kirk Cousins. Now, I wouldn't be shocked. And I'm kind of thinking about this and almost talking myself into the idea that they maybe flip flop Kirk Cousins and Trey Lance. I'm not exactly sure what the compensation would for sure look like, but it'd be kind of the framework of that. I think when you consider Brock Purdy backing up Kirk Cousins is a Shanahan guy through and through. Spent some time together in Washington, and I think it would continue here. I think this offense is completely built for success for for Kirk Cousins and the San Francisco 49ers, and he could take them to a deep playoff run, in my opinion. We got John here saying Lions to the Super Bowl. Lions are phenomenal. I think they're going to probably win the division next year based off of what we seen last year heading into the offseason. They're a team that's going to get better. The Packers, Vikings are going to get worse. The Bears will get better, though, for sure, 100%. So let's talk about this. What do we think that the Packers will get for Aaron Rodgers in that trade? I think you could be very well looking at a first round pick, a second round pick, maybe even 2/3. I'm not. That's tough because it all depends on if Aaron Rodgers gives a commitment for more than 1 year. Because do we really think that the Jets should sell their future for one season of Aaron Rodgers? I don't know. They're one injury away from just completely dismantling the progress that they had made all the way to that point. So, for sure. Taking a look here, we got King Logan the third. I'm a Falcon fan. Yeah, Falcons, man. Let's talk about the Falcons even further. Under Arthur Smith, this could be a team that could make some splashes in the offseason. I think they have to address the edge position. I could see them looking at another wide receiver. Their offensive line actually had a pretty decent year last year, so maybe a few touches there. Now, when you look at the quarterback position, are they content with, Desmond Ritter heading into the offseason, or are they seeking out something more? And I think that could be more of the case there. I think they could be jumping into that market, in my opinion, very well could be. So here we go from Robert. Last heard, Jags have only 8 mil. There was a lot of reconstruction with Kirk, Zay, Brandon that extended the contract. Ray Robertson, Harris made cap space. Okay, well that's fair. Yeah, I mean that's completely fair. The fact that they could, yeah, I remember hearing that they thought they had or they were going to be making some additional room with that contract. I just, Roy Robertson Harris, the player, I'm just not a big fan of him. I know a lot of people like him, but when I watch him, I'm not overly blown away. And I think for a guy like that, as a true rotational defensive lineman, I would rather select one in the draft, have them for 4 years, and then cycle out that contract rather than having to pay what they had to pay him. So overall, I definitely get that. I think the Jags have to be careful here. I think they're at a huge risk of actually losing Josh Allen. So Robert here also says that I think Brock is better than Lance, and some people might think that. Some people do, but I just think we need to see more of Trey Lance to come to that conclusion. There's a lot of time between. Brock Purdy had an awesome finish to the season. Do you want to disrupt the mojo of what you had going if you're the 49ers, or do you feel you can improve? That's always the curious case that you have to have. And Jay here says that 49ers reached out to OBJ. If we sign OBJ, sign a contract, I'd like to get Jesse Bates or Jordan Poyer. Yeah, I mean, Jesse Bates on the 49ers would be dangerous on the back half of that secondary. Absolute ball hawk, terrific safety. He's had an awesome career with the Bengals. If OBJ goes there too, another dynamic receiving threat to that already nice core, he'd be a great complement to them for sure. So I think that's something that we can do. We got Kyle here talking about hope we can fix our run D in free agency. You see us targeting Chuck or Paris Campbell. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the LA Chargers, this is a team that is, I feel like they're pretty close in terms of actual contention. When I look at them, I think they can go ahead and make some terrific strides moving forward. The run defense was not good. That was a actual main concern of mine heading into the postseason. And that was a little bit of an issue, but nevertheless, it was a tough, first round playoff loss to Jacksonville. But the Chargers are close. They're really, really close. Got to make a couple of key additions here in the offseason that could help the run defense. And Sebastian Joseph Day was supposed to help that mightily, but the results did not yield that. But yeah, for sure. Another Jay comment here, but bring back Jimmy Ward wouldn't make me mad either. Yeah, Jimmy Ward's another good player. I just think that he fits exactly what this defense is all about. I think the 49ers are going to miss D'Amico Ryans, to be completely honest. His play calling was phenomenal. He had a great defense to work with, but I think he elevated the play of some of the mid-tier guys into playing very, very well and competitively. So shouting out the 49ers, D'Amico Ryans, that's tough that era's over. Deadly Content here says that Seahawks like Josh Allen. Yeah, they absolutely do. They absolutely do. And I mean, a lot of teams should be in on Josh Allen. The fact that, when you look at him, I think the Jags are honestly going to let him walk. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take a look at, the actual outlook here, because let's go to Josh Allen. It's hard to believe that he's already in his 5th year. or what will be his 5th year. Yeah, I mean, he's an unrestricted free agent heading into next offseason, which this has been a concern of mine. It has been this entire time. The fact that they could lose Josh Allen in free agency should be a massive concern to Jags fans. But I mean, he's going to be one of the top tier, sought after free agents that we've seen in a while. His ability to rush the passer, defend against the run, he's a really complete edge rusher. So overall, if we got Chargers kid here, I'd watch the 49ers if they signed OBJ. Yeah, absolutely. They're already fun to watch right now. And imagine adding a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. To me, that's awesome. I think they're going to be really fun to watch next year, regardless. I think a lot of drama is going to unfold there in the Bay Area between Brock Purdy, Trey Lance. Do they keep them both? Do they trade one of them? I'm not exactly sure. Does Kirk Cousins go into the mix? And something else I want to kind of talk about here is something that's kind of critical at this point, something that's not being talked about, and that's Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is likely going to be traded. Now, I don't know how many people are fully aware of the situation in Minnesota and what could be happening, but let's talk a little bit about Dalvin Cook and some of his landing spots, what could be happening in Minnesota. So overall, you have to consider a couple of things. Now, this is a new regime in Minnesota. It went from the general manager being Rick Spielman to Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. That transition has been drastic. You look at a head coaching change. You look at a personnel change. Adam Thielen got cut this offseason. That's a move that nobody thought was going to happen. Why? The fact that he had a $19 million cap hit ends up getting cut. They only saved $6 million of the 19. $13 million of dead cap for the Vikings. $13 million of dead cap. So they deemed, and let's just put this into perspective. The Minnesota Vikings deemed that Adam Thielen, they can replace Adam Thielen for $6 million this year, is what that says. So let's do this quick. This is the big topic here that we have to address. We have to go through this right now. Is Dalvin Cook on the move? I think the answer to this is yes. I think there's an overwhelming argument for him being traded. I've talked about it heading into the offseason, and people were not believing me the fact that he could get moved. But now, looking at where the Vikings are at, they're still over the cap. They're still over the cap. They released Eric Kendricks, Cam Dantzler, Adam Thielen, and they are still over the cap. You want to talk about a team that is going to see some regression next year, it's going to be the Minnesota Vikings. Now, we all didn't believe the Vikings were as good as the record indicated this year. The fact that they went 13-4 in the regular season, had a home playoff game teed up against the Giants, and then lost is unbelievable. Unbelievable to me. But now, Dalvin Cook has a $14 million cap hit going into the offseason. $14 million. Now, when you consider that, that is a sizable portion of the cap. And to be exact, he has the fifth highest cap hit heading into the offseason now. I think Dalvin Cook gets moved. And I think there's a lot of teams talking to the Vikings about Dalvin Cook. That should be a main focus for Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. The fact that they could move him in exchange for draft pick compensation, it's going to be lower than people think. For sure. This will be something that is lower than people think, 100%. 100%. Overall, I'm pretty nervous for the Vikings, 100%. Because when you look at what's going on in Minnesota, it doesn't make sense from this point on. What's the next move? There's not a lot of room to improve. 110%. Dalvin Cook is a guy that will get moved. Now, what is that look like? What does the draft compensation look like for Dalvin Cook going elsewhere? Well, the first thing we have to ask ourselves is how much money is open for a team that needs a running back. I think there's a team that is really starting to click in my head that makes sense that people are still once again not talking about. That's the Atlanta Falcons, guys. The Atlanta Falcons could be the top landing spot for Dalvin Cook. And the reason I say that, I know people love Cordero Patterson. I do as much as the next guy. But when you consider where he's at, his age as a running back, we're going to see some regression. This is pretty interesting. It's crazy because a lot of people like Tyler Algier, Cordero Patterson mix. But let's think about Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith is a coach that loves to run the football, loves to set up play action. Those are his big MO. That's his big MO. That's what he's trying to do to set up his offense for success. Now, I think that the Atlanta Falcons jumping on a guy like Dalvin Cook makes sense. Why? Currently, right now, Atlanta's got $63 million in cap space. $63 million, and they're able to probably, I'm kind of curious to see what the trade number would look like in terms of what the Vikings would retain in a deal like that. But trading him makes a lot of sense to me. Now, the compensation part of it, I think that very well could result in something similar to what we just seen Ramsey get dealt for. You're probably looking at a mid to late third as compensation, potentially even a fourth. Now, that's something that people would say, oh, that's crazy. But once again, this is a running back that you're having to pay a sizable amount of money. Now, and here's another great point here from Jay is Zadarius Smith might get released. So looking at the Minnesota Vikings, if they release Zadarius Smith, that's going to free up probably about $14 million of their salary cap space. Now, $14 million is a sizable amount for a team that's still $7 million over the cap, and that could put them in a position. Now, to me, I think there are some moves that are going to happen. You have Harrison Smith that could be cut. Now, let's run the math on this here quick. We're going to jump back to the Vikings. $7 million over the cap. If they go ahead and release Harrison Smith, they're going to be freeing up approximately $8 million. So that puts you at $1 million above the salary cap. You have $1 million to play with in free agency. Not going to happen. There's going to be some other moves. Zadarius Smith likely will get released, freeing up approximately $12 million. You're sitting at $13 million with the Minnesota Vikings. I think there's another move to come after that, and that's, to me, Dalvin Cook gets traded. I really do believe that should free up another $8 million, gives them some more money and flexibility heading into the offseason, into the free agent period. So once again, now let's talk about this too. This is a route I didn't really think about. What if the Rams trade for Dalvin Cook? You know what would have actually been a little interesting to me? If the Vikings were able to clear enough money where they could have potentially, let's just say they cut Zadarius Smith. Let's just say they cut him, let him go, free up a bunch of money there. They get themselves within striking distance of that cap number they need. What if they had flip-flopped Dalvin Cook and Jalen Ramsey? That's an interesting proposal. It is. But considering where the Rams' timeline is, how much money do the Rams have right now? They're about $2 million. $2 million over the cap. They got a lot of high-priced veterans. Allen Robinson, oh man. They got Joe Noteboom. Wow. Yeah, this team is in dire need of a fresh start. You have Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford, Allen Robinson, Aaron Donald, all of those guys that are high-priced veterans that I don't see them being able to fully rebuild. So overall, I think that's kind of an interesting prompt here. Just wanted to highlight this comment from Kirk here again. Yeah, so not like my Cowboys will be making any types of moves, win now moves. So yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious because Dallas has got such a good roster right now. I mean, they're so close to actually being real contenders in the NFC like they were this year. We've seen the beatdown mid-season between the Vikings and Cowboys, And that was kind of a flash in the pan of what this team can actually be. Defensively, they have all kinds of guys flying around the football. It's incredible to watch this team go to work. I love it. I think Dallas is a team to watch in the offseason. Once again, I'm going to pull up my fantasy numbers here. Let's run it. Let's take a look at the Cowboys. 21st in the league in cap space, sitting at about 12 million. That's actually kind of shocking to me that they have that much available currently. Some of the big earners, obviously, Dak Prescott, $27 million cap hit. DeMarcus Lawrence, Ezekiel Elliott is another one that they're going to try to move him 100%. They're going to try to move on from him, but I don't know. I really don't know. J-Ron Curse is another guy that can free up $5 million or so if they release him. I just don't think they're going to get rid of JK. But yeah, Dallas. Maybe they do something. I mean, let's think about this though. They got $11 million to play with. You can sign some nice mid-level free agents for that. Yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, man, it's so tough with the Zeke deal. They got to be able to figure out something there. Maybe they guarantee him more long-term years. Do they rip the Band-Aid off? I don't know. I don't know what happens with Ezekiel Elliott, because Tony Pollard is a better running back. Now, people are going to be, I don't know if people are really going to agree or disagree with that notion, but I think that Ezekiel Elliott is worse than Tony Pollard. And Tony Pollard needs a guy like Zeke to complement him, but you can't go into the season with your RB2 making $16 million, nearly $17 million. That doesn't work. It really doesn't work if you're a team like that. PJ Cruz here. Shout out to your Detroit Lions, man. They're going to be a lot of fun. And let's keep going. Josh Allen will get traded. Yeah, will Josh Allen get dealt? I think Josh Allen has a very, very possible chance of getting dealt. It's just, what are teams willing to give up for an edge rusher that is going on an expiring deal? They'd probably have to have a deal lined up, to be completely honest with that team. If they let Josh Allen go in free agency this next upcoming offseason, it would essentially be the following offseason, they end up getting a comp pick, which will likely be a third or a fourth round pick. So Josh Allen, big impact player. And overall, it's going to be pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. I got to keep going down a little bit. Got Anthony Edwards here. The Hots and the Vikings bloodbath. Yeah. I mean, we were just talking about a little bit ago. Minnesota Vikings are absolutely they are tearing it down. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah is going all out on trying to, quote, better the roster. He's getting his guys into place, more Kevin O'Connell guys that'll fit the scheme better. But yeah, I think that it's crazy. Now, that's going to lead into my next point here. Where will Kirk, the quarterback, go, referring to Kirk Cousins? I think Kirk Cousins, if anything, would probably go to the 49ers. I think that's a very real landing spot. I think Kirk Cousins very well could be done in Minnesota. As much as people don't like him here, I think they're going to actually miss him when he's gone. A lot of people think that Kirk Cousins is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, and it's just such an unfair thing. I get people don't like him. I really get that. But there are firmly people out there that believe he's one of the worst players in the league. It's unbelievable. Being surrounded by people that hate Kirk Cousins is just so unnecessary. Yeah. And once again, yeah, you might as well put Anthony Edwards out there, man. Put him at corner. The reason being that, I mean, this corner room's a disaster for the Vikings. A complete disaster. Cam Dantzler gets released. Patrick Peterson's gone. Your corner room is Duke Shelley at corner. Like, I don't understand. A Caleb Evans and Duke Shelley, cornerback 1 and 2 for the Minnesota Vikings going into the offseason. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah, I'm pretty perturbed by that. So here, real quick from Kyle. Chances on the Titans trading Derrick Henry. Let's go percentages. Let's bring the percentages here on, does King Henry get moved? I think it's a very real possibility. I give it probably about a 60-40 that he gets actually moved this offseason. 60-40. I think the fact that Derrick Henry is got so many miles on him, and that the Tennessee Titans have to go ahead and make some changes this offseason, considering that you have a team like Jacksonville that has finally dethroned them after consecutive years of, being a division winner, extending back to when Houston was able to finally win it, a couple of years ago. But now, God, Tennessee is good, man. They're a good team, but they're also just they're such a middling team, that's got to be right there. I mean, man, they have to retool. They can't completely, throw it all down. So yeah, going back to Jay's here, the negotiation period begins tomorrow, so that's where you're going to see some of those breaking news happen is tomorrow. Andrew Booth Jr., right. And I didn't mention Andrew Booth Jr. I was on my little tangent, but Andrew Booth Jr., watching him at Clemson was incredible. I think that was awesome to kind of go through and watch some of his film. I felt he was a first round level player. Absolutely. Andrew Booth is going to be an impact guy in the league. 100% should be a good corner, actually, but they have to continue to address it as well. Yeah, so going back to the Chargers kid here. Yes, I do. I really do like the Minnesota Vikings. I do. I absolutely love the Vikings. But yeah, I mean, that's why you're going to see me covering a lot of that. Let's keep going through some of the comments here. Got Shane and Robert kind of exchanging some back and forth. Arden Key to stay. I love Arden Key, man. Arden Key is such an awesome impact guy in that defense. And here we go for Kirk up here too. Pollard's been the better running back for 2 seasons. Absolutely. Now, I mean, man, Tony Pollard is so exciting to watch week in, week out. The amount of big plays he can generate, his efficiency running the ball, his yards per carry is always towards the top of the league, like this past season. Man, I mean, he's fun. Tony Pollard's a lot of fun. I mean, he's one of those guys that, man, it's tough to watch the fall of Zeke, though. Zeke was so dominant, especially his rookie year, man. His rookie year, Zeke was absolutely on one. But, yeah, I mean, Arden Key, yeah, I mean, as a 49ers fan, yeah, I'm sure, because Arden Key was a player. Now, let's talk about the Arden Key story. The fact that when he was at LSU, he was supposed to be a top 5 pick. Things did not go that way. A lot of things actually went wrong. Goes middle rounds of the draft, and I recall being like, man, I don't understand how he fell that far. And where he really came into his own was San Fran, and then Jacksonville picks him up and was a nice impact rotational defensive lineman. So now let's talk about this, Shane. Now this is kind of an interesting prompt. Josh Allen for T. Higgins. I like this. I do. Now, who says no? That's a big question mark, because you're getting an impact edge for an impact receiver. Both teams benefit greatly. I think Cincinnati wants to hold on to T. Higgins, though. I really do believe that. I really, really do believe that for sure. They want to hold on to T. Higgins. He's so good. With many moves, want the Cowboys is just not to sign mid-level free agents, but go after elite separators via trade or a my ball type like Hopkins, like the Eagles did for AJ Brown. Yes, Kirk, absolutely. And I'm tired of teams signing these guys to these mid-level contracts. I'm absolutely bored of that. It doesn't work. You need players that move the needle. You need impact guys. You need disgruntled stars. If you look at some of the most successful moves of an offseason to move the needle going into the year, you look at those kind of deals where a disgruntled star gets traded, like an AJ Brown, and you pay him. Tyreek Hill, and you pay him. Stephon Diggs, and you pay him, especially at that wide receiver spot, you can get a premium guy in the market. And I think that's why DeAndre Hopkins is worth a flyer for multiple teams. I mean, every team should basically be in on him because of how talented he still is, in my opinion. Absolutely. Now, if we look here, what wide receiver one could the Colts pry away from a team? Terry McLaurin is from Indy. Okay, Terry McLaurin, man, man, I have a hard time believing that Washington would be necessarily willing to give up on him. I think once again, DeAndre Hopkins could be a target for the Colts, a team that feels like they might be a little bit closer. I'm kind of curious to know, Joe, on your side, if you're, obviously looking for what prospect you like the most in the class for the Colts, because they got to go QB this year. It's going to be obvious, but now I've been seeing some reports they're not panicking on what's happening. They're going to go ahead and just kind of hang out, lay in the weeds, and wait for that guy to, their guy to quote follow them. Maybe they like a lot of the quarterbacks. Let's just say in a hypothetical here that Carolina goes Stroud, and then you have, like the Texans go with Bryce Young, and then you're kind of left wondering, is Anthony Richardson a target? Is it Will Levis? Those are some big question marks that we have to have here for the Colts. So wide receiver ones that you can pry. I think that when you look at it, DeAndre Hopkins is the one that really makes sense. It kind of depends on the direction of the Raiders, because I mean, what if Devontae Adams gets moved again? I mean, that's something that people aren't necessarily talking about right now. But what if Devontae Adams just gets traded once again? Let's kind of look. Let's see around the league here. So let's see who else we have that could be kind of disgruntled as a star. I think the biggest one, honestly, is the idea that what if T. Higgins gets moved? That's probably the best chance. I think T. Higgins, essentially getting traded because they're far apart on contract negotiation, gets traded to Indy. Indy pays them. I can see that happening. Absolutely. Now, if the Colts end up getting Allen Robinson, that'd probably be a huge, huge mistake. That number is just too much. Now we got another question here, Anthony Edwards. If Anthony Richardson falls to 9 with the Vikings trade for him, I don't think the Vikings would be aggressive enough to jump up. They don't have obviously the draft picks in this draft to go ahead and move up. They'd have to obviously trade away a future first. A little bit risky. I think they actually stay pat there. There's going to be a couple of other teams kind of wondering that same thing, if they can jump up if he lasts that long. So excuse me. Now we look at Jesse Bates. Could he go to Buffalo? I think it's a real possibility that they could look at him. I just don't know if they would be willing to, salary cap wise, jump up to that spot, because Buffalo is negative 17 million. Just they got to clear up too much money to make that happen, unfortunately. So that's something you have to consider as well. How much money do these teams have? Buffalo is just too deep in the hole currently with that. So now, once again, jumping back to this, the Cincy trade T. Higgins. If so, where does he go? I mean, for Cincinnati, I think Indy's a landing spot. I think that Atlanta's another big landing spot. Who else? Okay, let's talk about the Texans. I mean, we haven't talked about the Texans that much in this live, but Houston Texans have to get a bona fide number one receiver. What better way of doing that than to get a super talented young receiver in T. Higgins, who could absolutely lead the receiving core. Whoever's at the quarterback position moving forward, whether that be Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson, they have to have a bona fide one, somebody they can throw the ball to, and reliably, and have a big, reliable, big catch radius guy to me. So pretty interesting. Let's take a look at the Chargers kid here. What do the Chiefs salary cap look like? Now, if we're looking at the Chiefs, yeah, they have $15 million in salary cap space, which is unreal to me. Absolutely unreal. Let's look at the outlook for them. Kansas City, once again, has another way of getting better. I'm surprised they didn't cut Marquez Valdez Scantling. I think they should. I'm not a Valdez Scantling guy. honestly should get rid of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It doesn't matter for the Chiefs. They don't need a guy like that. I would try to move him for a late round draft pick, to be honest with you. Tommy Townsend, another guy that they got at 2.6 million at the punter position. Maybe they move off of him. So overall, Kansas City has a pathway of still getting better in the offseason. To be completely transparent with you, I think it could happen. Man, best landing spots for Mike Gesicki. Mike Gesicki is the curious case of what is he? What is Mike Gesicki heading into the offseason? What does he look like as a borderline top 10 tight end in the league? And I think he has a pathway of being a Pro Bowler. Now, it all depends on situation and tight end needy teams. I could see Houston going after another tight end. They have OJ Howard currently. I don't believe in that fully. So once again, you're going to see the Texans do a couple of different things to help out their rookie quarterback. I believe it's going to be Mike Gesicki heading to Houston. Let's keep going here. Now we got Shane here. Be mindful that negative salary cap teams signed big names last year at the same time. Yeah, it's funny with the NFL salary cap. There's a lot of different ways to manipulate it. Making certain conversions to open up salary cap, just like like you and Robert were talking about earlier. So yeah, I mean, there's going to be some teams that are able to finagle this and make it work. Kansas City's done it for years with their general manager. So absolutely. Robert here goes that the Bears got draft capital and cap space. Chicago's dangerous. They're really dangerous. Ryan Poles, I had a lot of negative feelings towards what he had done to this point as a general manager, but he absolutely turned the leaf and made the correct moves to put themselves in a great position here. When they traded Roquan Smith, a lot of people were kind of gawking at that idea. However, it just opened up so much. I'm surprised that a guy like Eddie Jackson hasn't been dealt yet. Now, I know people are going to say, yeah, well, Eddie Jackson's a good player. Yes, he is. He absolutely is. But at the same time, with their youth movement and where they're trying to go, he's got a $17 million cap hit as a safety. To me, I think they could very well be looking in another direction. Maybe they end up still trading him at this point. DJ Moore's got a $20 million cap hit this year. So that's why you see a little bite into that Bears salary cap. Justin Jones, another guy that's got a pretty sizable cap hit for what remains. Honestly, I would have cut him. If I was Ryan Poles, probably would have got rid of Justin Jones, saved my $5 million there too. I would have Lucas Patrick. I know they like Lucas Patrick, but I don't know. This team is in a good position. Their corners are interesting and fun. Justin Fields is obviously there. This offense is not that far away from being one of the top tier offenses in the NFL, at least a top 10 level offense. Chicago needs to continue to improve. One of the best run games that we had seen last year, obviously with Justin Fields, but with the combination of Herbert Montgomery, deadly duo as well. And another comment here, to be honest, Byron Murphy to Minnie would be nice. Yeah, absolutely. In Byron Murphy. But once again, we got to see what Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah can really mix up here. So now we got Joe. Once again, a lot of people saying the Colts are drafting AR. How will our stud running back get his carries if the QB runs it and can't throw? Yeah. So when you're looking at that, when you're looking at Anthony Richardson, I think Anthony Richardson is the curious case of a guy that ceiling is incredibly high, but his floor is incredibly low to the point where he's unplayable and is a huge risk of being one of the biggest busts that we've seen. Now, at Florida, he had some brutal games, brutal games. But when you're considering that the Indianapolis Colts are right there, I think they are in a good spot. I really do believe that. Michael Pittman at receiver, Jonathan Taylor at running back, a pretty good offensive line, relatively speaking, comparing to other offensive lines. Anthony Richardson has to have infrastructure around him to have success. He cannot go to a complete dumpster fire like, say, Houston. Houston has got a lot of issues right off the bat. But nevertheless, I think that with the Indianapolis Colts, you're going to see some stability. of players around him. However, it's a management issue that you have to be questioning as well. I'm kind of curious to see what they end up doing here. Um, OBJ update here. Let's take a look. Let's jump back to Twitter quick. Let's see what Adam Schefter's got to say right now. We need to be checking some of these tweet notifications. You know, we got Payne, that his deal was huge. Teron Payne. Now let's look at Ian Rappaport, because he's another big one that we have to continuously keep our eye on. Other things that are developing. Jalen Ramsey speaks here. Tom Pelissero, several teams are now in talks with OBJ with generated buzz with workout with front office, scouts, and coaches in Arizona on Friday. OBJ has made no financial demands, expects to ramp up some things soon. And wow, we got some more Minnesota Vikings news. It appears that the Vikings will not be offering Kirk Cousins an early extension, and he will play out the final year of his contract. So it appears Kirk Cousins will be staying a member of the Minnesota Vikings. He will play out his final year, and then will hit free agency likely next season. Rob, thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Love it as always. Let's take a look here. Once again, Bears need the cap to be spent on good players in free agency, and keep players like Eddie. Sounds okay for, when you kind of look at this, the idea that you want to remain competitive. They have a lot of money to begin with, but I can see both sides of the coin, to be completely honest. But to me, I operate on the idea that they had really revamped things. So maybe trading a guy like Eddie Jackson, freeing up the money, and then being able to start fresh that way. Eddie Jackson is a terrific player. Don't get me wrong. He is a huge impact guy. He is a phenomenal impact player that helps out the defense a ton. It's just a pretty sizable cap number at that safety position. Once again, it doesn't hurt to have him around. Once again, if you feel like you could be pretty competitive within the next 2 seasons, yeah, definitely keep him. Would you rather have Michael Pittman pick 4 or DJ Moore as a receiver pick 9? I like DJ Moore as a receiver holistically, but I mean, I would rather have Michael Pittman in pick 4. Pick 4, there's a lot of things you can do. You can still trade back, maybe acquire another first round pick. Pick 9 is a little bit tougher. Having a top 5 pick is so valuable for sure. Jonathan here. I hope Dallas makes a big move, either D Hop or OBJ. But I think we should let go of Zeke and possibly draft Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs. Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson would be great fits for Dallas. I think Bijan is a better fit than a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs for the sheer fact that he's more of a complete runner. Obviously, you'd have to invest a higher draft pick in him. But nevertheless, I think that that's definitely a good statement to make here for sure. But another one here, Moore is a good pickup to use cap as well, and good money spent for the value. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look at what the Chicago Bears have done, this is exactly how they needed to play out. I know they've allocated quite a bit of the cap space to DJ Moore, but it makes sense. This makes sense, everybody. It makes sense. AJ Brown was worth trading for, extending, giving the big money to. Some of these receivers are just worth doing it, especially. You don't want to get into the habit of what Jacksonville had done 2 years ago with Urban Meyer and Trent Baalke, both of them coming into their own. And then that offseason was probably the worst dollars spent I've seen in a long time with some of their moves. It didn't make sense in a lot of ways, and they had overspent on middling free agents that made little to zero impact. I have an issue with that offseason. I really do, and it still kind of burns me to this day here. So, yes, absolutely. More moves like that for Chicago. What do you think about viewing Bijan as a first-round talent? The Cowboys pick, don't draft a running back in round 1. Yeah, and here's the thing. Thank you for pointing this out, Kirk. I really appreciate your comments. You've been just killing it with the comments. Bijan Robinson is absolutely worth a first-round pick. Now, Saquon Barkley, when he was drafted in the first round, obviously went super high, right? he was a high draft pick by the Giants with not a lot of infrastructure. Dallas has infrastructure. They have talent around that. Now, the fact that if you're able to get him at Dallas's pick, let's just say Bijan falls all the way to Dallas, they have to take him. Why? Because you're getting a top 10 level player, potentially top 5 level player at that pick. Regardless of positional value and what a guy thinks about it, it does not matter to me. I would love Bijan going there. I think Bijan will be gone by 26. I really do firmly believe that. But Bijan's an absolute beast. You have to go and get a guy like him. With Delvin gone, I can see the Vikings taking either Bijan round 1 or Tyjae Spears in round 3. Spears is a good running back for sure. I'm kind of curious to see. I think they're going to extend Alexander Mattison. And if that's not even the case, if they aren't able to kind of get that done, I think they're going to just, continue to roll out and maybe Ty Chandler gets some run. I think Ty Chandler very well could get some run next year. Once again, they're going to try to upgrade that running back spot. They need to be able to run the ball effectively, but part of that has to do of improving the offensive line even further. They got great tackles, but need to address the center spot, in my opinion, for the Vikings. What team fits OBJ? I think Dallas is a really, really good fit for OBJ. I think the Giants also could heavily benefit from him being there. Giants are expected to extend Sterling Shepard. Oh boy, man. Sterling Shepard being extended by the Giants. A lot of people love that. Let's take a look. Let's hop into getting our bag here and figure out what's going on with Sterling Shepard, because I'm kind of curious to see what that number looks like. Let's see. Sterling Shepard's currently trending on Twitter right now. Looks like they're going to be. Yeah, so it looks like they are expected to re-sign him. Okay, so it is a 1-year deal. That's not so bad. I thought they were going to do a long-term extension with him. Yeah, absolutely. I was scared of that. Man, if they would have done a long-term deal, that would have scared me just a little bit. We got Shane here once again. Cousins has been nice in Minnesota. Now, I think that Minnesota and the Kirk Cousins thing is a very, very interesting position that people just continue to hate on the idea that why didn't they, continue with Case Keenum after they had made the NFC title game with them. And the thing is, let's look at Case Keenum since his departure from Minnesota, goes to Denver, signs a big contract there. They have to, get rid of him. And then now what? Kirk Cousins is still very productive. Say what you want about this team. He still won 13 games. He had like 9-game winning drives. I don't care. Like I know people absolutely dislike him, but man, he's had one of the best statistical quarterbacks that you've seen in the course of Minnesota Viking history. If you look at actual efficiency, he's number 1. Overall, Kirk Cousins has been, now I have to say this carefully, the best statistical quarterback the Vikings have ever seen. Now, in terms of the actual legacy and impact, Frank Tarkington's number 1 for sure. We got Joe here talking a little bit about Jordan Love. Jordan Love's a great thing to talk about here. Jordan Love is a player that is pretty awesome. I love Jordan Love in terms of what his ceiling could be. I'm just excited to watch him. I'm excited to watch something different in Green Bay than Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be good because the Packers have had 40 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play, and now they turn a leaf again. And is this the same story? Is this Jordan Love goes on to be an all-time great like Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre? Likely not. But once again, it's different. It's fun. It's flashy. It's good stuff. Now, the reason I have this rolling on the bottom ticker here is I firmly believe Dalvin's gone. I really do believe that he is there. And we got Chargers Kid with the update. Again, with Payne getting the 4-year, $90 million extension, the biggest in NFL history for an interior defensive lineman. It's pretty sweet. So I'm going to go ahead and make that here. And there's our re-signing Ron Payne. 4 years. This is a great contract for him as an individual player. Really, really good contract for him. $1 million extension. Yeah, I think they did so good with that. I mean, with his camp, I'm gonna go ahead and make that. Go ahead and make that a scroller along the bottom line there, and then we got that just rolling here. So thank you for that. Man, 4-year 90. That resets the market. What is Quinton Williams' contract going to look like? What is, Dexter Lawrence's contract going to look like? There's a Jeffrey Simmons too. Yeah, this is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Jalen Carter. Let's talk about Jalen Carter. I think he's going to slide. I think he's going to slide in the draft, rightfully so. I'm not sure how long the slide goes, but I think it's going to be a pretty long one. Once again, got Justin Jefferson joining the live. Trade me to Cincy. I want out. That's awesome. Man, we got JJ in here. We got Anthony Edwards. A lot of Minnesota celebrities, obviously, in the chat. Clearly, higher than Aaron Donald. Yeah, absolutely. Highest one in NFL history. Crazy. Chargers kid, thanks for the exact details on that one. I got Kirk again in here. I agree. Making moves that move the needle versus just signing middling free agents is smart. Who is the big free agents, trade targets that you haven't discussed today that would move the needle and would be worth the most money dash trade? Yeah, let's talk about that. This is probably one of the best comments that we've had for sure. Let's kind of go over the free agent list. Let's see, top NFL free agents for 2023. We're going to go ahead and get that pulled up for you. Kirk, great question. Great question, because let's look at it. Let's absolutely look at it. We're going to look at the top 51 guys, according to NFL.com. And because Roquan got his deal, Orlando Brown, obviously. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is another one here that absolutely has to move the needle. James Bradbury on a 2-year deal probably moves the needle pretty sizably. I'm trying to look. Mike McGlinchey, Jamel Dean. Yeah, so let's stick with the top guys. So Josh Jacobs is one that actually does move the needle for a lot of teams that need a running back, obviously. I think that's pretty important to look at. But let's see who else is not being talked enough about here. I'm trying to. I feel like it's James Bradbury. Now he did the prove it deal with the Eagles. He proved it. He was great with the Eagles. James Bradbury signed to a 2-year deal, to me, is going to be one of the bigger impact signings in free agency. I get he's 30 right now. However, we had seen so much out of him this past season where he can be a shutdown corner. I think for at least the next 2 years, he's going to be, a top 10 level guy. And you just don't find that in open free agency. So to me, that makes a lot of sense. So to answer your question, James Bradbury, once again, he went from under the radar signing last year on a prove it deal to all of a sudden moving the needle tremendously. And we got another viewer here talked about Lamar. Lamar, we talked about him a little bit earlier. Lamar Jackson is a player that is likely going to get some offers. I think Atlanta is definitely going to be in the running. Now, once again, I think this is going to make some people question this, but I think Lamar Jackson might be looked at by New England. New England realizes they have an mounting pressure on them. They have quite a bit of money heading into free agency. They can get rid of Hunter Henry and free up a ton of money there. They can rework Jonnu Smith's deal. They have some money to kind of work with. They're in a division now that very well could be adding Aaron Rodgers and just got Jalen Ramsey added to it. I think when you look at a team that very well could take a chance on a quarterback, that's Lamar Jackson going to the New England Patriots. I don't think many people have belief in Mac Jones long term. I certainly don't, but I think that it's probably going to be the case here where you could look at Atlanta or New England as real options. Lamar to the Rams. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of curious now on what happens with Matt Stafford moving forward. I don't know. Matt Stafford is one that we have to talk about here. Is Stafford available? Yeah, I think if you're kind of looking at the Rams, that they probably just hold on to Stafford for another year and try to run it back with a retooled roster, in my opinion. Absolutely. Yeah, hard to admit Bradbury was an underrated needle mover as a Cowboys fave, but I agree it's a great pick. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think when you look at Garrett Bradbury, or my goodness, Garrett Bradbury, James Bradbury, and the impact he had for the Eagles was incredible. I think there are, you know, pretty much every team that has any amount of money should be looking at him for a 2-year deal. It's going to be a sizable amount of money, but it's going to be worth it, especially the sheer fact that they can get a guy that's going to be super consistent in that secondary. And we got ATG Rico here. Who do you think that the Giants can get in free agency? Yeah, so let's talk about the Giants again. Now, I think that when you kind of look at what the Giants should do in free agency, they made some moves, right? Daniel Jones being re signed. I think Juju is a guy that very well could be looked at by them, or Jacoby Myers, because Jacoby Myers actually probably fits what the Giants are looking for. Another consistent receiver that they're going to be able to see on a week to week basis. He's going to be available to play, and he should probably have close to a 1,000-yard season, in my opinion. Uh, Jacoby Myers has been somewhat held back by the quarterback play, but with what Brian Dable's been able to implement with this team, it's incredible that he went on the road and beat the Vikings in their home stadium. The Giants were awesome this year, and I think a lot of people would agree they shouldn't have gone as far as they did. But Brian Dable was one of those high impact coaches that was able to, make the most out of his current situation. Absolutely. Um, but yeah, I think it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy with what they have. To me, that makes some sense. So Jacoby Myers is a guy. Let's see who else is available. That could make some sense. Um, maybe a guy like David Long could make some sense. David Long from Tennessee. He's had an awesome career to this point. Been a big staple for the Titans defense for a long time. Yeah, man. You know what? I'd love to see Delvin Tomlinson go back to New York. That'd be sweet. Um, Yeah, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks, man. Seattle Seahawks are once again, if we want to talk about teams that had a great story, Seattle was phenomenal this year. They were great. They were awesome to watch. A lot of credit to them in the draft. Getting Tariq Woolen was a huge move for them. Now they need to continue to build upon that. Yeah, looking at Seattle in terms of some of the free agents they could likely go after here. Let's see. I think Draymond Jones, from Denver, could be huge. He was awesome for the Broncos here. Ended up having a hip injury. I think it was week 14, went on injured reserve. But when you look at a guy that had, I think it showed top 20 in pressures on the quarterback from the interior defensive tackle position, and you're able to address that having pocket pushers is what I call them. Guys like that going to Seattle is dangerous. I really firmly believe that Draymond Jones is going to be that guy. So for you, man, I think getting him could be absolutely huge. Looking for some of the other impact guys, Mike McGlinchey too, from San Francisco. I gotta look at if he had been extended here. So let's go. I'm just going to pull up some of this information for you guys, just so I got it in front of me here. Let's see, free agency tracker. Let's go through the CBS Sports. Every time I go on the CBS Sports app, dude, it's so slow. It's incredibly, incredibly slow. Yeah, so the top free agents available right now. Let's talk about it quick. You got Javon Hargrave for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's going to sign with a contender. Marcus Davenport from New Orleans, Orlando Brown. Jawan Taylor, man. Jawan Taylor had a season for Jacksonville. I could see Seattle looking at a guy like Jawan Taylor as well. Kirk again here. Jacoby Myers, underrated needle mover. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think when you look at Jacoby Myers, he is one of those guys that is super unsung. Absolutely. ATG, Tremaine Edmonds for the Giants. That's pretty sweet that he went to your high school. I mean, I'm sure he was absolutely the man there, dude. I mean, it was Tremaine and Terrell. Pretty awesome, their story of getting to the league. Um, yeah, here we go. Baker might be taking over for the GOAT, man. Oh, man. Baker Mayfield. Hold on a second. Rap sheet. Let's take a look at what else Rap Sheet's got going on. Let's see. Ian Rappaport. See if there's anything else kind of going on with him. Yeah, shout out to everybody that's still, here in the live hanging out, and we're just having a good fun Sunday afternoon talking some football, man. It's been quite a while. I got some draft prospects to still scout yet tonight. I've been working on a spreadsheet. Let me know if you guys want to see that spreadsheet here. Let me know because I'm still kind of working through it. I don't know if you guys want me to kind of sit one day, and I have this awesome like grading system that I've came up with myself on how to do this. Not necessarily like actual grades, but it's going to show you. I'll show that on another live here. We'll dedicate like a draft one. Where do you think Dean lands? Yeah, I think Jamel Dean is having to go to a corner needy team. Teams that have some money. I could see a Jamel Dean being a New England guy as well. Like if they don't end up going the Lamar route, I think Jamel Dean's going to be a New England Patriot. He just kind of embodies what they need over there. Wouldn't be shocked at that. Trey Edmonds too. That's right. That's right. His dad played for the NFL. Yeah, that's great insight, ATG. Absolutely. That's really awesome. Yeah, I mean the Edmonds brothers. That's just such a fun story. It really is. And Tremaine is just such a baller. It's incredible watching him on the field. He's such an explosive athlete. I remember watching him at Virginia Tech, just blown away by his explosiveness as a linebacker. It's crazy. Got Dylan Prescott here. Any big splash moves to watch for Chicago? Absolutely. Chicago is going to make a couple of different moves. They got to improve the linebacker spot. Tremaine Edmonds is going to get a bag somewhere. There's no doubt about it in my mind that he's going to go somewhere. He's going to get paid a lot of money. So I'm going to back out here. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, I think Tennessee as well could be in on that. But yeah, I think overall Chicago should be looking. I mean, maybe they end up going with a guy like Javon Hargrave, who has some really good years left. A lot of tread on the tires yet. I get he's 30 years old, but he's such an impact guy. Oh, no. You know who I like more for Chicago, to be honest with you, is going to be Marcus Davenport from New Orleans. Marcus Davenport was a guy that was deemed super, super raw in terms of what his actual skill set was as a pass rusher. I think Chicago's going to jump all over getting another pass rusher. They need some help on that defense, some edge help. They also need, they're going to need some help across the board. So absolutely, 100%. So jumping over to this real quick, cool to see the draft spreadsheet on stream. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that when you look at my model, essentially how I have it laid out is, player name, so position, player name, college, and then I have traits. I have a main trait and a secondary trait, and I always do this to mentally just keep myself on my toes when I'm watching the film. What are they good at? What are the two big strengths that they have? And I put it on there in a drop down menu. So that's something that we have to do for sure. Absolutely. So kind of looking at this now, do you think Dallas tries to sign Bobby Wagner? Yeah, I think Dallas is good, to be honest with you. I like Bobby Wagner. I think he's an impact player as a veteran, a good locker room guy. But man, I like what Dallas has defensively. I really do. I think they're going to try to, maybe add another rotational defensive lineman, maybe get a little more interior help and maybe one more edge to kind of cycle through. Because some of the best teams, you look at Philly, had some rotational guys that you could really trust. And I think that's super important in deep playoff runs when you have some guys that you're getting wore down as a defense and you have some fresh guys to come in off the edge. I think that's why it's super important to have depth in this league. And that's why I don't think they honestly need to go after a guy like Bobby Wagner. Um, I like the linebacker room Dallas has right now. I really do. Absolutely. Chargers kid here. Are you live all 3 days? Yeah, good question. I wish I was live. I do have to work every single one of those days. So unfortunately, I will not be live. I wish I could literally be live with you guys for hours and hours, just watching it unfold. I so would do that 100%. And Dylan, appreciate that, man. Appreciate the comment. You guys are doing great. Comment section for sure. I think this is great. Feeding my content here, having it be what you guys want to talk about. That's what I like doing. Absolutely. Now imagine if Miami can get King Henry. Okay, Dustin, great prompt. Great prompt. And the reason I say this is the fact that if Miami is able to land Derrick Henry, there are going to be some problems for the league. I think they need to push forward with it. They need to take the model of the Rams, push the chips in, trade some more draft assets, and go get Derrick Henry. You would essentially have a 3-year window to really try to win a Super Bowl because Derrick Henry, a lot of miles on him. When he hits the age of 30, it's going to decline heavily from what we've seen. I think Derrick Henry in Miami could be super dangerous. But once again, we got some more comments on that. Henry to Miami. That would be crazy. Really, really crazy. Wow, man. That's kind of a wild thought. I think it's a real possibility for sure, guys. With Miami and what they've tried to do, they have to go ahead and push the chips in, especially in that division that they're currently in. They absolutely have to go ahead and move forward with that, in my opinion. What do you see the Steelers doing? Yeah, Steelers, man. They got to get some offensive line. They got to get some offensive line help. Their run game suffered mightily last year because of it. The passing game picked up towards the back half of that season. They got to address that offensive line. Mike Tomlin has done a good job, especially this past season, really settling down the troops and having a nice end to their final stretch of the season. Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be addressing the offensive line. Who knows? Maybe they get into the Jawan Taylor sweepstakes at tackle, Orlando Brown. This is a team that very well could be a little move and shake trying to win that, AFC North. Absolutely. But yeah, I think this is pretty crazy. Old Alabama squad, man. Tua, Waddle, and Henry. Yeah, we're going to have to start calling them, dude, the Alabama Dolphins. It's crazy. This team definitely loves their Alabama players. But yeah, so kind of jumping back to this real quick. Steelers are going to make some signings here. I think it's going to be a tackle. That's where they're going to focus their money. They're going to sign a lower level guard, in my opinion, a guy that maybe a little bit more under the radar, but they have to address that tackle spot for sure. 100%. So overall, there's a lot to love about what they can do. Hopefully, Kenny Pickett see some progression going into next year. But yeah, overall, this is some good stuff. Absolutely. But yeah, collectively speaking, I think when you kind of look at what's available in the market, there's some guys that are going to get a bag, and there's going to be some guys that actually kind of get left in the dust. As I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm trying to figure this out in my head, who are the guys that are, really going to get left in the dust, get left behind in terms of, who's still available at that point? So free agent, right? 3 CBS. I'm going to pull up a list of free agents, and let's kind of collectively go through together as a stream here and try to figure out exactly who is going to get left in the dust. Who, when you're doing the, the musical chairs, who's going to not have a chair at the end of free agency? Because it happens every year, guys. Every year there's a free agent that ends up just left in the dust because there wasn't enough money to go around, and they either take too long or they command too much money right away and then lose out. That's a very real thing, and for some reason my free agent list is not pulling up. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see who ends up not being able to afford that. What players not going to get the bag that they think they deserve. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to wait a while, really making his decision. Let's keep going here. definitely a guard, but inside linebacker, key need. Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. Yeah, I think they need an inside backer. That's one that I guess I completely glossed over the fact that they need a guy that's able to sniff out the run. They need somebody that's really reliable in the run game. Honestly, you want to have guys that are good in coverage and pass coverage specifically, but you also need a true run stuffer, a guy that is a sure tackler and is very instinctual. And to me, Steelers need to get somebody like that in the mix. Taking a look at the lines here, need a defensive back, linebacker, D tackle. Absolutely. They had tried with like a Lee McNeil and a couple of those other key additions to the draft. I think that's still a need. They need to continue to address it. Linebacker's been something we've talked about for quite some time with these Detroit Lions, and it hasn't been a huge point of emphasis in terms of their attack in the offseason, but absolutely a need. And then, like you said, defensive back, key need for the Lions. They should really focus on defense this year. And I mean really, really focus on the defensive side of the ball because their offense was so efficient last year under Ben Johnson. I don't know how much of it I would change. I don't know how much of this team I would really try to change here. So absolutely. Yeah. Left tackle. Yeah, absolutely. Now, and the thing is, too, about the Steelers on this end, they need a tackle super bad. And I had talked about that in a lot of my mock drafts and things of that nature. They're going to go that route. They're going to get a tackle. I think it's going to be through the draft. But yeah, I think, when it's more free agency, you're probably right in regard to it's probably going to have to be a guard and a middle linebacker. Should be kind of a focus here. Now, let's talk about this. Does anyone think that Dak Prescott can lead Dallas to a Super Bowl or even win it? Because I've been waiting for a while for it to happen. You're going to be waiting for quite some time on that one. I don't think Dak has that in him to win a Super Bowl. I mean, maybe he proves me wrong. It's very possible, but I don't know. I don't, unless the team gets even better around him, he's not going to be that guy to really will a team through a playoff run. I like Dak Prescott in terms of what you're going to get from him on a week-to-week basis, but at the end of the day, I don't think he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. It's going to take some special talent for sure. Once again, staying on the Dallas side of things. Taking a look at what Dallas has done in terms of team building, like the Lions, you think 6 is too rich for the third or fourth QB if they fall? Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, when you look at the QB class, I've gone through the prospects, and I've got all the way past Jake Haener to Aiden O'Connell from Purdue. I've gone to these lower level quarterbacks, and I don't like any of the guys particularly well moving into the later part of the draft. So, I think drafting a quarterback is important. Guys like Will Levis are going to get left in the dust a little bit, but I think it's very, very critical for some of these teams here to go ahead and move forward with that. But I think at this point, guys, I probably should end the live here. I'm going to just throw some of these up here. Absolutely great for OBJ. Bijan Robinson, potentially the Lions, man, that'd be wild. And then what would happen with DeAndre Swift? That's another big question we'd have to ask ourselves there. And I do need to still take a look at that letter. So let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and end the live here. Thanks again for everybody stopping by. Another thing I should probably ask for in the live, guys, is are we thinking on starting a Discord? Do we want a Discord? Do we want to all be able to talk in that, and we can answer questions in there and keep up with all of you guys? I'm going to go ahead and throw that up here on one of my banners quick. Do we start a Discord? That's a real question we have to ask ourselves. Do we start a Discord here? Because I want to be able to talk with you guys off of stream. There's a lot of things, we can do. You can always communicate through Twitter as well. So make sure that you're following us on Twitter at Utility Sports, and we'll make sure to answer all of your questions there. Do we want to start one? I think we absolutely should. We can go ahead and communicate on the Discord there. I'll kind of wait for some of those comments to kind of filter in. Kurt's got his thing here. We got Chargers Kid with the yes here. And I wonder if I should be able to, we'll try to post that on our YouTube channel here. I'm going to be posting some more shorts on YouTube. We're going to be I'm going to be trying to post some more videos. I've just been a lot of times that I don't, I'm not available right now. So nevertheless, we'll go ahead. We'll probably start up that Discord and we'll throw it on the YouTube page for sure. So thanks again for stopping by, and we'll catch you in the very next live stream for Utility Sports.